Even though the official definition of depressions has changed, or recessions, I'm sorry, have changed, generally speaking, when we see things getting better than they were before, we see that as growth, and we don't consider ourselves in a recession. Or
Except, the Great Depression, 1929 to 1940 usually, that includes two recessions and two recoveries, but the economy was in a depression the whole time.
Right.
So you look, the important points right now are 4 million Americans have been out of work for more than a year. That hasn't happened since the 30s. And the economics, the usual medicine, which is the Fed cuts interest rates, isn't available anymore. Those are the defining features of a depression.
For our audience to understand this, when you say the usual tricks are not available anymore, they've gone down to 0%
That's
interest.
right.
And why is that not working? Why is that not done what you think it should have done?
Well, it did. It helped. It would have been much worse if they hadn't done that, but this was one hell of a shock to the economy. We had an enormous housing bubble, and probably more important for the state of the economy right now, a huge increase in private debt, huge increase in household debt, which left us over-leveraged, means that the private sector has pulled back. Consumers can't spend because they're dealing with their debt problems. Businesses won't spend because the consumer demand isn't there. And so even cutting interest rates to 0 is not enough. It's not structural. What it is it's a very severe problem of inadequate demand because the private sector got over-leveraged. This is the time when the public sector has to step up and do the spending that the private sector for the time being can't.
So if the answer isn't to lower Fed interest rates anymore because we can't, the only solution then is to return to stimulus and more of it?
Well, more... Yeah, although it's a funny thing. What we've actually done is not stimulus but austerity. We've actually pulled back a lot. If you look at the cutbacks, particularly at the state and local level, they're huge. So we don't actually much need new stimulus as simply to reverse those cutbacks at the state and local level, which will require aid from the federal government. That will do a lot. Now, monetary policy can help. I beat up on Ben Bernanke over the weekend saying that he should be doing more, but we need the heart of it has to be that we need to reverse this really misguided austerity of the past couple of years.
What more can Ben Bernanke do? Are you talking about a QE3 on top of other...
Of course, QE3, but beyond that, the Fed needs to make it clear that it is going to hold off on raising those short-term rates longer than people now expect, that it's willing to let inflation rise to something like 3 or 3.5% before it slams on the brakes. That would have a big effect on expectations now. I don't count on that to do the job by itself, but that combined with getting those school teachers rehired is what we need to get out of this depression.
As serious as this is here, it's so much more serious in Europe. And this weekend we've got elections in France and Greece, both of which are to some degree referendums on austerity versus stimulus to provide growth.
Yes, and the Europeans, now they've created a mess for themselves because they've created this trap of the single currency without the institutions to support it, which means that their situation in a fundamental sense is more difficult than ours. They need to
they don't have the toolbox.
Right, they have to do something especially adventurous to make this thing work within the confines of the single currency. They need more inflation than we do, but they've given us an object lesson in the effects of austerity under depression conditions. Which
you're using this as a sort of a vindicating argument to say this is what happens.
Yes, there was a big debate 2 years ago. A lot of people in Europe and here were saying, "Oh, cut government spending. That'll increase confidence. The economy will expand." Well, look at Spain, look at Greece, look at Ireland. It doesn't work that way.